My brother humiliated me with a cruel toast at our mom's birthday dinner, but the words I spoke right after shattered their illusions and made them confront reality at last. My name is Jake. I'm 32 years old, and I've always been the odd one out in my family. Not in some melodramatic black sheep kind of way. No, this was more subtle. My brother Ryan was the golden boy. Varsity everything, straight teeth, naturally charismatic, and good at charming every adult in the room. I was quieter, more bookish, not great with crowds. I liked to build things, computers, apps, small businesses, that kind of stuff. My parents were never cruel to me, not outright, but they made it clear in small ways that I was more of a responsibility than a source of pride. Ryan could set the house on fire, and they'd blame the matches. I started working early, freelancing, tutoring, flipping tech on eBay. By the time I was 25, I'd founded a modest online business that took off faster than I expected. It wasn't flashy, and it didn't make headlines, but it made me enough to move out, buy a house, and eventually expand into a second company. Meanwhile, Ryan bounced from job to job, marketing, real estate, a failed podcast. Every time something didn't work out, he'd move back in with our parents or ask for help. Every time, they welcomed him back like a war hero. Me? I never asked for anything. I just kept my head down and worked. I thought distance would fix things. It didn't. If anything, the more successful I became, the more they resented me for it. My mom once joked that I had too much money and not enough memories my dad made backhanded. Comments about how some people hide behind work because they don't have people. It stung, but I swallowed it. I kept sending birthday gifts, paying for dinners, even covered some medical bills when Dad got sick, and the insurance didn't fully kick in. I told myself, they're still my family. This is what you do. It all came to a head at my mom's 60th birthday dinner last month. She turned 60, and my dad threw a big celebration at an upscale restaurant downtown. He rented out a private room, got a custom cake, and even hired a live band. He told everyone it was going to be a classy, intimate affair, just close friends and family. I offered to pay for it. He said no, said it was his gift to her. I should have known that was code for you'll be paying for it anyway because the day before the event, I got a call from the restaurant confirming my card for the deposit. I didn't cancel it. I should have, but I didn't want to make a scene, not on Mom's birthday. The night of the dinner, I showed up in a navy suit, brought a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet I'd had custom made for her with all our initials. I tried to keep the peace. Ryan was already there, working the room like he was running for office. His girlfriend was draped on his arm, laughing a little too loud at every joke, wearing a dress I was pretty sure I paid for last Christmas when she mentioned she couldn't afford anything nice for the family photo shoot. My parents were glowing, surrounded by friends, drinking wine, eating off plates I was unknowingly footing the bill for. I mostly sat quietly at my corner of the long table, talking to a cousin or two, sipping water. I don't drink much, especially not around family. I've learned that clear judgment is my only real defense. Then came the toast. My dad stood first, naturally, and went on about how wonderful Mom is, how she's the heart of the family, how none of us would be who we are without her love. Then Ryan stood, smiling, glass raised, that same smug expression I've seen since we were kids, like he was about to knock over my sandcastle and pretend it was an accident. Here's to family, he said, grinning wide. To the love, the loyalty, the shared history, and to those who remember. What matters? Real connection, not just numbers in a bank account. Except for Jake, of course. He chuckled, glancing around the table for effect. The failure who thinks money makes him worth something. I didn't laugh, but everyone else did. My parents, my aunts, even Mom, who shook her head and smirked like it was just good fun. I stared at him, then at them, and for a moment it felt like I was 14 again, sitting in the back seat while they all told me to lighten up when Ryan accidentally broke my laptop. I stood up calmly, picked up my glass of water. The room got quiet, like they were waiting for me to storm out or make a scene. Instead, I smiled, just a little, and raised my glass. To the failure, I said, voice steady, who just stopped paying for everything you own. I watched my dad smile falter first, followed by my mom blinking like she didn't quite hear me right. Ryan snorted, then paused. I didn't sit back down. I was going to wait until tomorrow, I continued. But since we're doing speeches, I've closed every account, canceled every recurring charge, and revoked every shared access. The car insurance, the utilities on the lake house, the family Netflix, gone. The emergency fund account Mom used last month? Emptied, not stolen, mine. And the restaurant bill tonight? I glanced toward the door where the manager was standing. "That's on you now." The silence that followed was delicious. But I wasn't done. I've been carrying this family financially for years, quietly, without complaint, because I thought it meant something. But this, I gestured around the table. This clears it up. Then I turned to leave. My dad stood up abruptly. "Jake, don't be ridiculous." But I was already walking past the stunned faces. As I reached the exit, I could hear Ryan mutter something under his breath, and then his girlfriend saying, "Wait, what does he mean the car insurance is canceled?" I stepped out into the night, the cool air hitting me like a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My heart was pounding, not with rage, but with relief. It had taken me 32 years to realize something simple. You don't owe people who keep treating your generosity like a weakness. And now, for the first time, I was free from that weight. What happened after that dinner? That's where things got interesting. I didn't go home right away. I walked for almost an hour just around downtown, past the dim restaurants and flickering street lamps, trying to make sense of the knot in my chest. It wasn't anger anymore, though that had been there at first. No, this was something quieter, sadder, the kind of ache you feel when you finally admit to yourself that a relationship, or a whole collection of them, has been dead a lot longer than you were willing to admit. I had spent years trying to buy peace, trying to earn respect with silence and support. But respect given conditionally was never respect at all. That night, I finally stopped trying to buy what they were never going to offer freely. By the time I got home, I had 2 voicemails from my dad, 3 from my mom, and about 7 texts from Ryan. None of them said sorry. My dad's voice was tight with forced calm. "Jake, we need to talk. You embarrassed everyone tonight, and that's not how we handle things in this family. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but call me back and fix this." Mom's message tried a different angle. "Sweetheart, I think you misunderstood Ryan's joke. He didn't mean anything by it. Please don't make a rash decision. We'll talk tomorrow over lunch, just the 2 of us, okay?" And Ryan's texts? Classic Ryan. "Grow up. You overreacted like always. So what? You're cutting everyone off because of a joke? LMAO, hope you enjoy being rich and alone." It stung more than I wanted it to, not because I believed him, but because part of me still wanted him. To be someone he wasn't, someone who'd realize he crossed a line and feel even a flicker of guilt. But that wasn't Ryan. That had never been Ryan. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. Apparently, the accounts weren't just a symbolic gesture, it was a logistical earthquake. The group family phone plan I'd been paying for? Gone. Mom's phone was off. Dad's voicemail was full. Ryan's girlfriend had posted a story on Instagram saying, "Some people only love you when they're paying for you." #lesson learned, and tagged Ryan with a picture of the 2 of them arguing in what looked like a used car lot. Subtle. I had to chuckle. I hadn't even touched the car note yet. That came later. See, after that dinner, I didn't just cancel their accounts. I started going through everything, one by one. I'd never wanted to keep a tally, but the spreadsheet I started that weekend opened my eyes. Over the last 7 years, I had paid for 4 vacations, including flights and accommodations, covered over $18,000 in combined credit card debt for my parents, helped Ryan with 3 business ideas that all went nowhere, bought his car outright when his lease was denied due to poor credit, paid off a balance on my mom's surgery when insurance fell short, and funded a surprise 30th anniversary cruise for my parents. Not once did I receive a thank you that wasn't paired with some dig about how I worked too much or missed out on real life. That spreadsheet? I sent it to all 3 of them, not with a message, no explanation, just a file, titled ledger.xlsx and a simple subject line, in case you forgot. Ryan responded almost instantly. "Wow, you really are that petty. Congrats. You want a parade too?" I didn't reply. Mom didn't either. But the next day, she showed up at my place, alone. Now, to be clear, I hadn't told her where I lived, but I guess Ryan had seen a delivery address on one of the shared Amazon orders back when we all used my Prime account. I opened the door and saw her standing there, wearing a thick scarf, and holding a small box of pastries from a bakery I used to love as a kid. She smiled like nothing had happened. "Hi, sweetheart." I didn't say anything, I just wanted to talk, clear the air. "May I come in?" I stepped aside, wordless, and she walked into the living room like she still knew the layout. She sat, placed the box on the coffee table, and looked around. "It's beautiful here. You've done well for yourself." I stayed standing, arms crossed. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," she started, already on shaky ground. "No," I said. "There hasn't. Her expression faltered. "Jake, you have to understand, you're different. You always have been." Ryan struggled more. He's always needed support. "And I didn't?" She blinked, caught off guard. "Well, you're strong. You figure things out." "Because I had to." That silence between us stretched until it felt like I could hear the walls breathing. She tried again. "He's your brother, Jake. Family doesn't mock you over wine you paid for, in a suit you bought, while your parents laugh." That hit her. Not hard enough, but it hit. "I'm not coming back," I said, more quietly now. "I'm not playing that role anymore. The wallet, the silent fixer, the failure with the credit card." Her hands trembled slightly. "We didn't mean—" "You meant every word. You just didn't think I'd stop funding it." She left not long after, took the pastries with her. I don't think she even realized she'd grabbed them on her way out. The fallout only got worse from there. Ryan's girlfriend broke up with him 2 days later. Something about finally seeing him clearly. The car I bought him was repossessed when I canceled the title transfer and retracted the insurance and registration, since legally it was still under my name. He tried to call me the day it was towed. I didn't answer. I thought things might quiet down after that maybe they'd get the message. But then something happened that changed everything. It started with an envelope. About a week after the dinner, after Mom's visit and the fallout with Ryan, I came home. Late one evening to find a thick manila envelope shoved halfway under my front door. No return address. My name written on the front in tight, familiar handwriting. Dad's. I stood there for a moment, just staring at it. 1,000 scenarios ran through my mind. Was it a legal threat? Some attempt to guilt me? A desperate plea to talk? I picked it up, walked inside, and opened it at the kitchen counter under the soft hum of the pendant light. Inside were several sheets of paper, printed emails, some legal-looking, documents, and tucked between them, a folded handwritten note. I pulled it out last. It was short, just a few lines. "Jake, I know we've made mistakes. I made mistakes. But I need you to see something before this goes further. Please, Dad." The tone was strange. Not warm, but not hostile either, just tired. And underneath it, something else I couldn't quite place. Urgency. I set the note aside and started flipping through the rest. That's when I saw the first bank statement. It was a joint account in my parents' names. Over the last 2 years, large withdrawals had been made regularly, some monthly, some larger and more sporadic. The name attached to the majority of the transfers, Ryan Weston. The amounts weren't small, $1,000 here, $2,500 there. 1 month even showed 2 separate transfers totaling over $9,000. Then I found the email thread between my dad and their accountant, dating back to almost a year ago. The subject line read, "About the house line of credit." In the emails, Dad had expressed concern about the growing debt against their home. He'd asked how much longer they could stretch things before refinancing would be denied. There was a lot of hesitation in his wording, a lot of indirect phrases like, "We were trying to help. Ryan get back on his feet and we didn't want Jake to know because he's done enough already." I sat down slowly, heart pounding. They'd leveraged the house, their house, the one they'd owned outright since before I graduated high school. They'd taken out a line of credit and funneled it directly to Ryan, quietly over years. And now it was maxed. I kept reading. Tucked behind a folded property document was one more printed email. From Ryan to Dad sent. "Just a few days after the dinner, if Jake won't help anymore, we need to look into selling. You said the market was strong. I know Mom doesn't want to, but you said yourself we might not have a choice." He made his decision. We can't wait around. I stared at the email for a long time. It wasn't just that they'd hidden this from me. It was that Ryan, after years of taking, after mocking me in front of a full room of people, was still trying to squeeze more out of them, out of my parents, and they were still entertaining it. Despite everything, they were still letting him drive the ship straight into the rocks. But that's not what made my stomach sink. What hit hardest was that line, "We didn't want Jake to know because he's done enough already." It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement I'd ever gotten from my dad. And it wasn't even said to me. It was buried in an email thread he probably never intended me to see. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to toss the folder into a drawer and pretend it hadn't happened. Another part wanted to march over there and demand answers. But the biggest part of me, quiet and cold, knew exactly what I had to do. This wasn't about just me anymore. If I didn't step in now, Ryan was going to bleed them dry. Unlike me, they didn't have a safety net. I needed a plan. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. I laid everything out. Not because I wanted to sue them, God no, but because I wanted to protect what was Left, to create some kind of legal structure that could prevent them from being manipulated further. We talked trusts, power of attorney, financial safeguards. But more than anything, I needed leverage, not to punish them, but to finally make them see the truth they'd been avoiding for years. The lawyer agreed to help and asked for copies of the documents. I sent over everything. Then I waited. Meanwhile, I stopped answering their calls. A week passed, then 2. Then one evening my doorbell rang. There he was, Ryan, standing on my doorstep, not smug, not smirking. This time he looked desperate. "Jake," he said, "we need to talk." I didn't say a word because in that moment I realized he didn't know what was coming and I wasn't going to warn him. Not this time. I didn't move at first, just stared at him standing there, hands in his, jacket pockets, face tight with anxiety, lips pressed into a thin line. The usual bravado was gone, no cocky grin, no sarcastic quip. He looked like a man who finally understood that the ship he'd set on. Fire was now drifting out to sea, and he wasn't on shore anymore. I opened the door just wide enough to let him in, mostly because I didn't. Want to have this conversation on my doorstep with neighbors watching. He walked in cautiously like he was afraid I'd slam the door behind him and lock him in, or out. He looked around, like the house might somehow judge him too. Sleek, modern, spotless, paid for in full, unlike everything he'd ever touched. We sat at the kitchen island. I didn't offer him anything to drink. He didn't ask. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he sighed, long and slow. "You really cut everything off." I said I would. His knee bounced. "You don't think that was a little extreme?" I let the silence answer that. He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I messed up, okay? The toast, the joke. I shouldn't have said it. I was drunk, and I thought it would be funny. I didn't expect you to blow up our lives over it." "You didn't blow up our lives with the joke," I said, finally turning to look at him. "You did that years ago. The joke was just the only honest thing you've said in a long time." He didn't like that. He leaned back, arms crossed. "So what? This is about respect now?" "This is about everything," I said, my voice low but firm. "Everything I've done for you, for Mom and Dad, all the years of paying, helping, fixing things you broke. And never, not once, did any of you stop to ask what it was costing me. Not the money, the weight of it. You didn't have to do any of that," he muttered. But I could see the guilt creeping in behind his eyes. "No," I said, "I didn't. But I did it because I thought that's what family does. I thought if I gave enough, you'd stop seeing me as the failure. But the more I gave, the more you resented me for it. The more I tried to help, the more you laughed behind my back." He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. "So, why are you here?" I asked. He hesitated, and then, with a deep breath, he said, "Dad's going to lose the house." I leaned back slowly. "I know." He looked up at me, shocked. "You know?" I stood, walked over to a drawer and pulled out the manila folder, the original one. I dropped it on the counter in front of him. "Got this the day after you sent that email to Dad, the one where you told him to sell the house because I wouldn't help." His face drained of color. "You've been bleeding them dry, Ryan. Thousands over years. And they let you because they didn't want to lose you." He looked away. "I didn't mean for it to get that bad." "You never mean anything, Ryan. That's the problem. You just take, and when it falls apart you act surprised." He rubbed his face. "So what now? You just let them lose everything?" I sat again, slowly. "No." His eyes snapped to mine. "I'm going to save the house," I said. "I've already set things in motion. The lawyer I hired is drafting a new trust. I'm buying the house from them at a fair market price and putting it into a protected fund they can live off for the rest of their lives." He blinked. "You're buying it?" "Yes, with conditions. They won't own it anymore, but they won't be homeless either. No more debt, no more second mortgages. Just peace. I'll even pay off the remainder of their credit lines. Quietly, legally, safely." He stared at me for a long time, unsure whether to feel relieved or offended. "And what about me?" I didn't flinch. "You're not part of the deal." He froze. "Wait, I'm done financing your chaos," I said. "No more bailouts. No more second chances. You've had a lifetime of them. This is where it ends." His voice rose. "You're going to throw me out? Out of everything?" "You threw yourself out," I replied. All I did was stop holding the door open. His jaw clenched. "What do I even have left?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Whatever you choose to build, if you want something, go earn it the way I did, the way everyone has to." For a moment he sat there, stunned. Then he stood abruptly and pushed the stool back with a screech. "You think you're better than me now," he said, his voice shaking. "No," I said. "I always was. You just refused to see it. He stared at me like he wanted to say more, but there was nothing left to say. He walked out, and this time, I didn't follow. Over the next few weeks, I finalized the transfer of the house. My lawyer handled most of it. Mom and Dad signed the paperwork with quiet gratitude, eyes down, no jokes, no sarcasm, just tired thank you and the occasional sniffle. I didn't stay long that day. I didn't want to hear their apologies. Not yet, maybe not ever. The house was safe. Their debts were cleared. A small monthly stipend was set up through the trust for their living expenses. It wasn't extravagant, but it was secure. There were rules, protections, safeguards. If Ryan ever tried to touch a dime of it, the trust would lock up instantly. A few months later, I heard he moved in with a friend across town, tried getting another job in marketing. Word was he quit after 3 weeks. Something about the manager being condescending. Classic Ryan. Mom sent me a card that Christmas. Just a card, no gifts, no requests. Inside was a single line, "We didn't deserve your grace, but thank you anyway." I stared at it for a long time. Then I placed it in the drawer with the folder and left it there. I don't see them much anymore. Holidays sometimes, quick calls every other month. It's polite, civil, surface level. I keep my distance, not out of bitterness, just clarity. Some people belong in your life only once they stop having power over it. As for me, I sleep better now. There's peace in boundaries. There's power in choosing where your story goes, instead of letting others write it for you. For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just living. And that's more than enough.